I don't see anybody on here. It says it's recording. Well, maybe not quite. How to well, if they don't turn.
Do I need to maximize that anyway?
Yeah.
Oh, here's Steve.
Good morning.
Hello. Do I have to? Yeah, but do I have to mute and unmute? Oh, okay. Working out the Zoom thing.
Hey. Yeah, I hear Robert and Sally are quote unquote working from home.
I'm not familiar with that yet, but possibly.
Well, they're in Maryland, I think.
Oh, well, I think they're away more than they are at home. So
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's their new home.
they have a time difference here.
Yeah, they could sleep in. Well, I'm Steve.
I'm John. I'm part of MDS Idaho.
All right. Where do you live?
What? In Boise.
Okay.
So yeah, they put out an invite in all of the churches for the meeting. So we'll see who shows up.
Yeah, Robert's really good at that.
Yeah.
Or Sally, I don't know which one does it, but they're a great team.
Yeah. So what's your role in all this?
I'm the regional coordinator for Region 4.
Oh, okay.
So I cover the 9 western states. I live in Central California in Kingsburg,
Oh, okay.
Fresno County. So I'm one of the very few in the MDS organization that gets paid to do this.
Oh, okay. Well, you have to show up then.
Oh, I love it.
We were down to California with MDS last year in like February.
Okay, to Ukiah.
Yes, exactly.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Yep. And now Paradise is open, I think.
Oh, open and closed.
Oh, again. Okay.
We open for 4 weeks and we still don't have building permits. And so we had to shut down. We're dormant for 4 weeks, and so we'll start up in May again.
Oh, okay.
Have permits, but man, I don't know. It's really tough.
Yeah, that takes time. Plus, they were being a little sticklers on their permits, weren't they?
Oh, I've only done this for 35 years. I was a building contractor, and I mean, what do I know, right?
Exactly.
This is whooping me. I've never seen it more difficult. But I think there are a number of reasons why. And it's not, there's no shortcut.
Last time we were down there, they had like one floor plan for, or one house plan for all the houses, which was actually kind of nice because it was easier to transition between house and house, but.
Yeah. And I wanted to do that here, but it's not going to happen. We've already got, I drew the plans for one house, and for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. And then we got another client that needs a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and another one that has to have 1,200 square feet minimum because it's it's in a POA, Property Owners Association, that has a minimum. Another has to have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath because they're a family. And another one, the lot is too small, and so we need like an 800 square
exemption.
And another one, the zoning requires that we have a 760 maximum square foot house. So I've given up. How many?
So you're going to be drawing a lot of plans.
Well, there is a foundation in Paradise that allows people to, like the master plan I drew, I put it on their library and anybody in town can use it. And we master plan it so that it's already approved for the city and the county. And so we're using other drawings, other builders.
Hello, Ernie.
Hey, good morning. I guess I'm unmuted. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Yeah, doing well. Yes, good to see you, Steve and John, both of you. Yeah, and thank you both for joining us today. Yeah, I guess we're going to start, in about 9:30, but we'll wait till then to make sure everybody's kind of around or online, and should work well. I haven't heard from Robert yet. He's traveling he's out with his family, but he's going to be joining us. But he had this chance because of the Paradise job being pushed back a little bit. You probably had heard that he ended up. They flew out to see their youngest daughter out in Maryland. So the beauty of Zoom, he can work with us even though he's half the country apart. Or actually, he's closer to the Pennsylvania office.
You call that working from home.
Well, that's right, exactly. From his temporary home, exactly.
Wherever home happens to be.
It's been kind of handy with Zoom. I know we've enjoyed it with our church for one thing, because you can people from all over the world basically join us, periodically, and definitely people out of state. So it's definitely been a good thing that way.
Yeah, our church does the same thing, and I just wonder what that's going to do to the future of how we do church.
Yeah,
You know,
I,
we have people that move away, but they live in another state, but they still come to our church.
yes, I think we're thinking about too how to do that, and I think we're going to end up maybe doing some kind of a hybrid thing where when we do start getting together, we'll probably still try to have a Zoom, screen and not exclude those people, like you're saying.
Okay.
And we haven't, I think one of the guys that worked with us, Gary Hunt, is kind of working on the logistics on that, I think now, trying to set that up. But probably end up being like a screen in the front, kind of facing, the computer facing the podium, and then maybe another one looking back at the audience, and then maybe more than that, but you'll kind of see, how that works. But yeah, I think that'll be good.
Yeah.
Definitely. So yeah, are you? How large of a church are you a part of there, Steve?
About 100.
Okay, a little bigger than our church then. And have you had about that many joining you on Zoom? Do you think, or is it hard? Maybe more even.
Yeah, probably. Well, it's hard. We don't do it on Zoom. We do it on Facebook.
Oh, on Facebook. Okay.
You can't always know who's on.
Yeah.
People watch it later. Like my parents are in a retirement community, and they're kind of locked down, and so they watch three other churches in the morning, and they watch our church in the afternoon.
Oh, is that right? Really?
They're a little more technically challenged, and so it's hard for them to get on in time, and so they said, forget it, we'll just do it later in the afternoon.
Oh, okay. That's a good way to do it. Sounds like they've got a lot of church happening on Sunday then, if they're doing three or four of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they enjoy that.
Yeah, I know that sounds good. I know it's definitely been cool to see folks a lot more than that you normally don't see, that are coming in from out of state, or occasionally there are a couple. There's one of our members is over in the Ukraine. Sometimes we see him, and then trying to think. Oh, we had Adelaide Ash, she's a young person, and part of a family that used to be in our church. She ended up meeting with us from Africa. She was, she's a working there and did a presentation from there. So yeah, that's been real good. Well, hopefully, I may get a hold of Robert and make sure he's ready to go here too. I'll just give him I texted him earlier and hadn't heard back, so want to make sure he remembers which time zone he's in and that kind of thing. Yeah, I'll step away here a little bit real quick and just try calling him, but I think we'll be again ready to go by 9:30, so or sooner. So hopefully we'll see him. So I'll be right back too.
projects do you foresee opening up this summer?
I just wanted to touch base with you. I just stored up Zoom and actually.
I suspect that once we open in May, our Paradise project will
And,
continuously for probably 2 to 3 years.
oh, okay.
Then one project is in Hawaii, where
Oh.
it looks like we have one house to build there. The potential of 9 different locations in Oregon and 2 in Washington. That we have different MDSers following Progress, the long-term recovery group. Then Fresno County, Central California, the Creek Fire destroyed, I remember 600 houses. So that's a possibility. Real close to Fresno, where we've got lots of volunteers. And then Santa Cruz, just south of the Bay Area, San Francisco, is another very possible. We have 2 Mennonite churches that are fairly close and that were affected by Santa Cruz fire. There are other places that we're not even going to look at what happened there because we can't find everywhere.
Yeah, it's been it's a busy, a lot happening all over, it seems like.
Yeah.
And so Paradise, how is the permitting coming on? Maybe we're talking about that on housing there. There's Robert.
Yeah. That is really difficult. And we don't have any permits yet. And I've been working on permits for, let's see, when did I first make application? In October. So,
Man,
and some days I feel like I'm going to have one in the next day or two, and then sometimes I think, well, it could take another month or 2 or 3 or 4.
man.
It's been an emotional roller coaster for me.
I bet it has. And are there a lot of permit applications coming in, or why do you think it's hard to know maybe why that is?
Yeah, no, it's a combination of things. One, just the general building boom going on across the country made a stress for every building department. And then the high number of homes destroyed and being rebuilt in Paradise adds another stress. And then the other is the delay in the sloppy government. They've been so sloppy in city planning and zoning and maintaining systems that it comes back to bite you. If you don't have fire hydrants, you don't have fire department that keeps tabs on trees growing like right close to your house, and they knew that they were in a fire zone. Anything about it? Now they're having to pay the piper. So it's and there are things that need to be done, and their tax base has been decimated. So they can't afford it. I mean, they should hire more inspectors, but they don't have the money.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a tough situation.
Well, you'll have it all ready for us when we get there, Steve, right?
Oh, I'm not making any promises. It's just It's really hard to know.
Well, Robert, how are things there in Maryland with you? Be able to visit with the family and get out and do some things together?
Well, we just got here on Thursday afternoon, so we're just kind of reconnecting, and we our daughter Melanie had to work yesterday. She works from home, so my son-in-law and the kids and I and Sally just drove around and looked at the flowers yesterday. It was a little bit chilly and windy, so we didn't get out of the vehicle much, but yeah, like I said, we just went to the Arboretum, and they've got lots of different flowering trees in bloom there. And then we went and down to the Capitol Mall and looked at the cherry blossoms. And guess we were down there when they had all the excitement about the car and the two police officers, but we didn't know about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really something. That's right. You're not far from DC then.
Oh, Cheverly is, you don't know when you leave Cheverly and when you enter one of the other suburbs and then you go into DC, you don't know where the borders are or anything.
Well, I was going, if you want me to, I was going.
You're part of the,
Yep, I know. I can get on. I was going to the website.
you ought to be at the meeting.
Yeah.
I don't know, you may want to keep everything muted on your end though.
Yeah.
You're going to be in the same room anyway.
I'm not going up and compete again.
This is an electronic household. There's every corner you look at, there's a desk and a computer.
So you're going to be in surround sound and multi.
Well, it's everybody plays a different game on a different computer at times, and so yeah, I'm down, and the kids they've all this winter they've moved their basement around so that they have 4 workstations down here, and the parents work from home and the kids go to school down here, so works pretty decently. But and their laptops go, up and upstairs and downstairs and everywhere they go, and their phones too. When you have a son-in-law that's his interest and profession, then it just multiplies.
You probably have a really good Wi-Fi system, I bet, right? I suppose.
Actually, for some reason, it was malfunctioning a little bit last night. Friday night's their family movie night, and they were having trouble getting it to stream in right on the one channel that they were trying to use. And we changed channels and it worked fine, but
Well, it's good to have an IT guy right there with you if you need help, I guess.
oh yeah. Mark's pretty good at running stuff down if there's a problem.
Yeah, no, it sounds good. Well, we have one daughter in town here still, so she is our IT person. Actually, both daughters are. You can other one remotely, but off and on I have to get a hold of them, especially if it's something with. Well, I'm just now starting Facebook. I finally decided to get on that. I put that off for 20 years or whatever. But, so definitely have, those kind of things I have questions on.
Yeah, I'm not on Facebook, but Sally is all the time. So.
Most kids have gone beyond that now. They're not on Facebook anymore. They're on Instagram or whatever else. And so Paul has been doing that. I haven't got into that world, but Yeah.
Well, I think Sally does all of those, so.
Hmm.
And I just trust her to share something with me when it's suitable to share.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. On a need to know basis kind of a thing,
That
right?
kind of on a need to know basis.
Yeah. Well, no, it's interesting with me, my family. Paula was on for quite a while, and she knew much more about my extended family than I did. Because they were friends, and so I would hear news about my family members through hers.
Well, that's the way Sally is with my sisters or my nephews and nieces and that. They're all on Facebook together, and so she has a lot more news than I do. So.
Hmm. I was just trying to figure out a connection with. I've got a big high school reunion coming up this year in May, and there's I think there might be a Facebook page. So that was kind of one reason I was thinking I should be on it, but so far I haven't. Seems like it hasn't really opened up right yet, or I haven't been able to connect. But anyway, maybe it'll just be a Facebook reunion. I suppose it will.
Well, John, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing fine.
Good.
Got my rut and I stay in it. So,
Or are you still on the same work schedule? Pretty much you've been on for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that doesn't change much.
mm.
People come and go, but I stay the same, I guess.
You're right. Is airplane traffic picking up? Can you really tell a difference there since?
Yeah, I'd say in the last 2 weeks, we're coming back. I'd say we're probably 75% of what we were.
Really?
Well, I was going to say when we flew out, it didn't seem any different to me, except that we flew United, and they were trying to make sure that people didn't gather on the hard surface in the terminal there in Boise, so that the people going to Delta and all the other concourses further down weren't obstructed by the passengers waiting to get on. So.
Yep. Also, with COVID, we pulled out about 30% of our seating, so
Yeah,
that's probably going to have to go back at some point.
yeah, I noticed there wasn't this much seating.
Morning, Sally.
Good morning.
So is the seating all spread out, still like 4 or 6 feet between or when you can, or how have you done that?
Yeah, that was the goal.
That's, I haven't been into the airport at all over this last year. I need to just come out and take a look. Although you don't need any more people wandering around there, I guess.
Well, it's hard to get back in that area without a ticket. So.
It is, exactly, right. Yeah. Yeah.
You limit the number of people who could sit down, but you put the same number of people on the plane.
Exactly. So, yeah, it's all theoretical.
So are the planes, they're not leaving the middle seat open? Like if you have a three, not at all.
They used to, but I think they are starting to, they're trying to get their number count back up, and that's how they make money. So
Mm-hmm.
I think Delta may still have their center seat empty, but United doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess, well, airlines definitely have lost a lot of money, I guess, over the last year, or they claim they have, but I'm sure they probably have.
They made tons,
Maureen?
they made tons of money before that. I'm not feeling sorry.
Yeah, I know, that's true. Not too sympathetic.
Well, they got a bailout too.
So Robert and Sally, did people pretty much wear masks on the plane then, or most
Well,
people?
yeah, we were masked up the whole way.
Little, good. Well, it's been good with the vaccines going out. I know, I don't know what it is percent wise in Idaho now. It's getting better. Probably what are we at 25% or something? I guess I haven't heard recently, but
Yeah, I haven't paid any attention to the percentages.
and then the population over 65 is a lot higher than that, I think so.
I know when I've looked on NPR, though, about where they have charts or a map of the United States, and with some kind of color-coded percentages of how vaccinated each state is. Idaho's still on the low side, percentage-wise, last time I looked. But that's maybe been close to a week ago, so.
I know the Crush the Curve group. I know they set up a big center. I just heard that on the news yesterday, I think. Not sure how long, if that's will go steadily once it starts. I'm not quite sure how it's going to work, but it's they're opening up a pretty good sized area to administer shots. Hopefully that'll help.
Yeah.
Morning, Kathy.
Okay.
Well, I guess it's about 9:30 now, but we can, I don't know, you want to go another couple minutes and give
Yeah.
people time to get on.
Actually, I had emails from, I guess Kathy was one, but I'm expecting the pastor from First Mennonite to get on. He followed through with what he said. So we'll give it a couple more minutes to see whether we can get more people on board.
Sounds good.
And Michelle's supposed to be on, so.
That's right. Well, we've got to maintain our Hyde Park tradition of we never start right on time, so don't want to do that.
The time is the time to arrive, right?
That's right.
Well, there's Michelle.
Is Michelle? Yeah.
Sorry for my tardiness.
Well, we haven't quite started yet, Michelle. Actually, you're pretty much on time. We were just talking about Hyde Park time, and Hyde Park time, you're on time.
Okay.
You're actually maybe a minute or two early.
Right.
Yeah, we got some people coming in now, so. Morning, Tim.
Right, Tim? Yeah.
Yeah. Like I say, I'm hopeful that maybe we'll get some people from Filer and from Aberdeen yet, but
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a good opportunity.
Matt, who you got there in the background? I
Oh,
think you're
that's,
muted, Matt.
yeah, that's Carter.
That's Carter. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I'll give it just a couple more minutes and we'll get started. Okay. Well, I'm thinking this may be all we're gonna have come in. Oh, there's come Russ. Morning, Russ.
Hey, Russ, morning.
He doesn't have his audio yet. Well, let's go ahead and get started, and hopefully some others will join us as we go.
Mhm.
Let's pause for a moment for prayer here. Heavenly Father, as we gather this morning, we ask that your presence would be with us, that you would guide our presentation and our conversations, and that you would make your will known to us. And we just ask that you would bless this meeting and I guess help us to do your work in the, as far as rebuilding and restoring for people who have had tragedy in their life. And we thank you for your presence and guidance in Jesus' name. Amen. Or does everybody know everybody, or should we do some introductions around? We're going to say, why don't you raise your hand when I give out your name? I'm sure everybody's screen's different than that. I think hopefully everybody knows me. I'm Robert Enra, and I'm the current chair for the Idaho unit. John, raise your hand. John Vance. It's John Vance. Steve Wiest. Ernie Bachman, Sally Unrau, Matt Isaac, Barack, Barrick,
Yeah, that's me.
Tim Yoder, Michelle, and Russ Bushert. All of a sudden, I got a senior moment. Kathy, I'm sorry, and Diane. Okay. Well, we're gathered here today to. It's been 2 years since we've had a unit meeting. We were in the process of last year planning to have our unit meeting when everything shut down for COVID. So you say it's been 2 years, and we have some catch up to do and do with that. But as first agenda thing I've got on agenda is actually I'd asked somebody binational to give us a little report on things on the binational level, and they have prepared a little Zoom presentation. Becky Grokeneyer and Jerry Grosh, and unfortunate part about them not joining us is we can't ask them questions after their presentation, but it's a nice little presentation. So Ernie, if you can try and
Yeah, I'll
pull it
try
up.
to bring this up on screen share. Are you seeing that okay?
There, it's working.
Good morning. I'm Becky Gockenauer, the volunteer manager, working out of the Lidditz office here in Pennsylvania. I'm responsible for all the staff that relates to volunteers, from recruiting and training to scheduling both leadership and weekly volunteers. I give leadership to that team to make sure they have what they need to get the volunteer to the project.
And I am Jerry Grosh, and I am the field operations manager in the Lidditz MDS office. I oversee the project work at the big picture level, doing the budgeting, the planning, and trying to coordinate the work across the 4 regions of MDS here in the United States. I want to start out by talking just a bit about the projects that we were involved in this winter. So you should be able to see a screen with a map of the US and Canada with a bunch of little, they're stars, I guess, colored stars. Each of those is at a location where MDS was active at some point during the winter. Some of these projects worked through the winter, but others were put on hold due to the surge of COVID cases that lasted through most of February. The RV volunteers going into Texas and Florida took some special COVID precautions before arriving at the project, and then they worked together through the winter months. Storm Aid and Disaster Aid Ohio, those are our Amish groups that kind of run their own projects. They do their own scheduling. They worked according to their usual schedule. And unit projects in Pennsylvania and Mississippi and the project in Puerto Rico continued as they were doing, with mostly local volunteers working. The projects that had weekly volunteers scheduled were suspended until March. January and February, they didn't work. Those were in West Virginia, North Carolina, Florida, Texas, and in California. Here's where we are in April, because our volunteer numbers drop off every year at the end of March. We close projects around this time. The 3 RV projects closed last week, and something happened there. Let's go back to this one. The 3 RV projects closed last week, and a number of others are wrapping up their work and closing even this week or last week, including Pollexville, North Carolina, Ponce in Puerto Rico, Victoria County, Texas, and the unit projects in Pennsylvania and Mississippi. We continue in West Virginia building bridges And in Marianna, Florida, we're finishing 4 new homes, we hope, by the end of April, and overseeing the volunteer center that is being built in Pine Ridge, South Dakota. Storm Aid continues working in Florida. Disaster Aid Ohio will complete the 23, yes, that's right, 23 new homes in Woodsboro, Texas by mid-May. In Paradise, we are waiting for building permits, and we expect Robert and Sally to be there by the middle of this month to help move that process along. So let's all cheer them. Thank you, Robert and Sally. We're expecting great results out of that. Go ahead, Becky. I'll hand it over to you.
So let's talk a little bit about the ways that volunteers interact with both our national projects and our unit projects. So at our national projects, we need weekly volunteers. They complete the work of repairing or building new homes. And groups come from all over the US and Canada each week and work under the direction of our project leadership volunteers. Of course, they come and do many different types of work. So our leadership volunteers include our project director, who gives oversight to the project operations, including working with the volunteers, community partners, and the homeowners. And then crew leaders help guide the weekly volunteers to complete the work as assigned by the project director. The cooks, probably the most favorite leadership position because they provide that delicious and nutritious hot breakfast and evening meal. Our office managers keep track of project expenses, paying the bills, helping to assign rooms for accommodations, and help the project director with the project. And then we have our RV program, which RVs, couples or singles who own RVs come to a project. They work 4 6-hour days, meaning that they don't work on Fridays, they take a long weekend. And one of the things we hear frequently from our RV participants is the relationships they build with the other participants as well as with the homeowners. So how can volunteers get involved with unit projects? Well, unit projects will need a project director or a project coordinator to direct the repair or rebuilding work for the volunteers who come. Those volunteers could be day volunteers or come for a couple days at a time. Crew leaders are sometimes needed at unit projects to help with the work. Sometimes the project director or coordinator can do that. And of course, volunteers come to do the work from your unit, from local churches, from just within your community to come and do the work as needed at the project. Sometimes it's done on the weekends, sometimes a couple days a week. It really depends how the unit chooses to set up the project. Another way that your unit could be involved and gain engagement with other volunteers is our summer youth program. Perhaps the Idaho unit would be willing to host a summer youth program location. And that would mean, together with staff, you work to identify a location where a project could take place. Typically, there would need to be accommodations for about 30 people. There would need to be a kitchen and dining area and space to park the equipment. Of course, the work doesn't necessarily need to be disaster related. We've had some summer youth programs where they've been repairing fences or rebuilding a cabin at a camp or cutting firewood or doing grounds work. The unit can provide some of the leadership or all of the leadership or work with staff to provide all or fill in the gaps that the unit can't provide. Another way that units can become engaged with volunteers is our partnership home program. This is where MDS works with the sponsoring group, it could be the unit, to identify a homeowner who needs a home. The house could be built in the parking lot or inside a warehouse and then transported and then constructed on site for the homeowner. Perhaps you as a unit don't feel this is something you could do alone, so you could partner with another unit from your region or with a church or a group of churches to work together to provide a home for a needing homeowner. COVID has helped us think outside the box on many, many levels, and we've heard of ways that units have been working outside the box to engage their volunteers with opportunities. One unit has been working on directing traffic at a COVID vaccination site, or delivering food to folks who are in quarantine because of COVID, making masks or PPE gowns, collecting and distributing animal feed for farmers who are experiencing a drought. Certainly doesn't feel quite like a fire or a hurricane disaster, but is a disaster nonetheless. And the Colorado unit has been building tiny houses for people who are experiencing homelessness. So we encourage you to think about ways that you can engage with your unit in maybe outside the box opportunities. Jerry, tell us what's coming up.
Let's go back to the map. Here I show the location of our summer projects, and you can see that Region 1 is planning to do a bridge building project in West Virginia this summer. Other than that, our focus is on our summer youth projects where we host church youth groups. And our goal is to have one project in each of the 4 MDS regions where we can host youth. This gives our youth groups the opportunity to serve closer to home, which seems to be particularly attractive during these COVID times. Most of these projects will also host other volunteers in between the youth groups. Where are they? Well, one is in Paradise, California, where Robert's going to pull those building permits out of the air. And we also expect then in Region 3 to work at Camp Menasca. This is not disaster related, but as Becky talked about, it's providing surface opportunities for our youth. Jennings, Louisiana, we will be responding to the 150 miles per hour hurricanes winds of Hurricane Laura that happened just last year. And then in Bennettsville, South Carolina, responding to the damage from Hurricane Florence in 2018. As a final encouragement, I just want to say that unit projects really energize units. A lot of units have found that whether they organize a group to go far away or they do something closer at home, that this way of serving together really helps them to get people involved and active in the kinds of things that they are doing. So I leave that as an encouragement to you, and just want to say that we're here to help you. We're here to work together, and we wish you all a happy Easter as you celebrate the hope of the resurrection. Thank you all.
Blessings. Thank you.
Well, as unit chair, I'd echo that as far as any ideas of how we can come up with a local unit project certainly would be welcome. I've been striving and hoping to find those kind of projects as long as I've been chairman, and I even think before that we were looking for projects that hopefully can pull our various churches together and people together and work on something locally and start to hopefully build MDS Idaho a little bit stronger than it has been in the past. In that, Michelle, have you got a little something for us about how you became involved here?
Well, I do. I typed it all out. Hold on to your seats.
Michelle, just a minute. I ought to introduce you to everybody that hasn't. Michelle is our new regional board member for the unit, Region 4. She came on board. What was it? this at the, was that January when you started, or was it before that, Michelle? I can't remember.
September.
September, okay. And Roger Sharp, who was the previous one, stepped down, and Michelle came on board. Michelle does not come from a Mennonite background, but she's learning to know Mennonites very well. So she's stepping into this position well and providing good leadership now as the new regional board member. So, Michelle, I'll give it over to you.
Well, thank you, Robert, for that. I appreciate your kind words. Yes, I'm getting acquainted with the Mennonite background. I've learned to become very cheap and understand those jokes. No, I'm just kidding. So I want to thank Robert for inviting me to share my story today. And I want to thank all of you for being here. Your presence makes a difference. And I thank you for supporting the Idaho unit and MDS. I also want to give my thanks to God. As it says in Jeremiah 29:11, God says, I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. So I want to go back just a little bit. Start on any given day in 2014. Those days you'd find me trying new recipes on my family in my kitchen at home, or working at my part-time job at the medical clinic as a receptionist, serving in the prayer or worship ministry at church. I also did all the typical things, clean toilets, do yard work, even hang out with friends sometimes. I was a regular Jane, or Michelle, as the case may be. I'm a mother of 2 daughters. I'm a grandmother of 4 littles that delight my heart. And that was how I spent my days, just, the normal things that we all do. I wasn't expecting anything extraordinary. But things took a drastic change in August of 2015 when lightning started wildfires in the hills surrounding Kami, Idaho, where I reside. That fire destroyed over 70 homes within a week's time of its burning, but overnight. The Lord had compelled me to attend a community group coming together to see what could be done to help our neighbors. I couldn't get away from that compelling, and I knew that I had to go as a representative of my church, and I became a caseworker in the long-term recovery and eventually became the vice chair of that group. We had identified 12 clients that met the MDS qualifications. And of those, 6 homes were built in our community the total for our group was about 1.5 years operating time. So we were able to do very efficiently. It was a crash course in disaster recovery. So at one of the long-term recovery meetings, some people showed up from this group called MDS. I had no clue what that was. But you might know some of them. Jim and Karen Shelley from Meridian, Idaho, and John Eshelman. I think he's been around a few times. The 3 of them kept returning to our monthly meetings. And before long, they were planning to rebuild 3 homes. And in the process, they were building relationships from showing up. Before long, John started inviting me to volunteer on a project in Saipan. You know what? I didn't know where that was either. I had a long list of excuses, like, I don't know how to build. And John would say, they'll teach you. I wish I could have channeled his manner of speaking to just get that across. If you've met John, he can be quite animated and very encouraging. Didn't let up. I was adding to my negative thinking, like thoughts of, I can't possibly take time off of work. I can't afford to go, and I'm too busy. And I frosted that with a thick layer of, I can't do that. I might be a little ashamed to think I was so negative in those days. But John kept persisting, and I decided that maybe I ought to pray about this. So I began to ask myself questions, or maybe it was the Holy Spirit that was asking these questions. Why wouldn't you do this? Michelle, isn't this what you have always wanted to do? It's a chance to help people. So as I thought about it, I recalled my dreams of that I knew how to build and to help people. My dad had in midlife decided that he was just going to start volunteering with a contractor to learn skills. A great example to me, and he eventually built his own house. So I'd always had a desire to learn that too. I also thought about my sense of adventure and how much I enjoy seeing new places and meeting new people. So soon John was sweetening the pot with things like FEMA's paying everyone's travel. And then even more so when he said FEMA is giving a daily per diem. You might find this as interesting as I did. The per diem for 3 weeks totaled more than my earnings over the 8 days that I would have missed of work. So I was offered a resource to fund the needs in my home, as well as be able to donate back to MDS. And my way was paid, so I had no more excuses. Now, I don't know how many of you have served on MDS projects. So maybe you know the absurdity of what I'm about to say. Just give me a little bit of a break because I was really new to all this MDS stuff. So my thoughts became, how many people get this chance? This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. So Isaiah 43:16 says, the Lord who makes a way in the sea, a path in the mighty waters. And so he did. God is the one who makes the way. In November of 2015, with my husband's blessing, I flew across those mighty waters to that little island. I went not knowing how to reverse a driver or even that it was called a driver, to playing what I called power tool bingo. I used every power tool on that project and I cleared the card. I developed quite a relationship with the chop saw, and every time I see one of those yellow chop saws on the job site, my heart just is warm and fuzzy. Outside of the cook, I was the only woman on that project at that time. And I found myself organizing the crew I was on for better efficiency. Project director needed help with the computer and finances. And as I helped him, I had the ability to ask lots of questions. There was a bathroom tile job that needed to be done so we could finish the first new build in Saipan before Christmas. We didn't want to go home and leave that home left standing for several weeks until new crews came. No one knew how to do the tiling job, so I tapped into my HGTV memories and I went for it. I tiled the whole bathroom, which was a handicap bathroom, so it was quite large. And we had to tile 5 feet up the walls because it was an open shower. I left my blood, sweat, and tears in that Saipan bathroom, but it was the best time of my life. By the end of those 3 weeks, I realized that even though I enjoyed building, that if I was to give the very best that I have, benefit MDS, I should consider serving in leadership. From that moment on, I wanted to return to Saipan for another tour of duty, as I called it. So fast forward to February of 2017. Worked on the Saipan project and been one of the instigators of the Kamiai project. Eshelman asked me if I would be the guest speaker for Region 4 at what is formerly known as the all-unit meeting. That meeting, I met a lot of great people. I heard inspiring stories and I learned a lot more about MDS. I had experience on the long-term recovery committee, helping my community and neighbors. I had served as a volunteer on a project. I know I was about to become a client too. That's kind of like a commercial, doesn't it? Shortly after giving my speech, my house flooded. A amount of snow that February raised the groundwater table, and it also revealed a failure in my roof, causing water in my walls and water in my downstairs. According to the contractor, it was $30,000 worth of excavation and repair work that insurance would not cover. Little birdie that had some connections, and they told the Region 4 leadership that my house had flooded and that it was not covered by insurance, and a team was sent to my home. So I have experienced every angle of MDS and disaster recovery. My husband and I have such a great appreciation for all that MDS has done for us. There are not enough words to describe. And it's part of the reason why I have such a great desire to give back to MDS. I have seen them help my community, and they've helped me personally in multiple ways. So, it's my plan to be a lifelong MDS volunteer. In April of 2018, I finally had the green light to return to Saipan, and this time my husband went as well. When I came home, I was certain at that point that I should serve in MDS leadership. I submitted my application and references to Josh Carson at the Lidis office and went through the interview process. And in late 2018, I was accepted. I served as an office manager in Pine Ridge, South Dakota. So for my first leadership role, and then I job shadowed a project director in Clear Lake, California. And I know without a doubt that, yes, I was to be a project director. Now, I say I knew without a doubt because it was the leading of the Lord. He gave a lot of direct words to me that it was unmistakable. I couldn't get away from it. But inside, I had a lot of doubts because I thought it doesn't really make sense for me to go and instruct crews on how to build houses because I don't know how to do that. I know how to do what I'm told. But since I couldn't deny what the Lord was telling me, I moved forward, combating those fears and doubts and walking by faith. And I attended the leadership and project director training. Immediately after that training, I had the opportunity to go to Rockport, Texas for 3 weeks and increase my building experience, building new houses from the ground up. 3 days after I returned from Texas, I got the call that there was an immediate need for a project director in South Carolina. My husband and I both knew that this was the will of the Lord, that I could immediately put into training or put into practice the training I had just received while it was fresh. So I started the 2020 New Year watching the sunrise over the Atlantic as I made my way to the site. I was connecting with hurting homeowners. I was seeing their hope for recovery as it became a reality through the generous hands of MDS volunteers from around the US and Canada. It was an incredible experience. I returned home to meet my husband and neighbors sucking up water once again as our house flooded for the second time in 3 years. But because MDS volunteers had taught us, it came the first time to do repair, we were able to repair on our own this time. Those volunteers empowered us. So while COVID-19 was shutting down the world, my volunteer habit continued when I went to Willow, Alaska last summer. There, I watched volunteers work miracles building 4 new houses, 2 additions to small existing structures, and assisting 3 other homeowners with projects on their emerging homes. This was all done in a project that was only 9 weeks in duration. The day MDS dedicated the 7 houses, one after the other, with over 60 people in attendance, was a great day of celebration. The story of how I became an MDS volunteer may be unique to me, but God has his plans and they are good. Now, last September, as Robert mentioned, I began the new adventure in MDS service when I was appointed as the Region 4 board chair. It was very surprising to me, but the Lord made it clear this was another step that I was supposed to take. Every day I have the opportunity to learn of the many service opportunities that are available for every skill, interest, and every experience level within MDS. Young or old, men or women, the youth with a hammer or a paintbrush in the kitchen or in the office. There are many ways to serve on a project, as Becky highlighted. There are also opportunities at the unit, the region, and the national level. Serving in the unit leadership, helping to just organize projects, even like as a project coordinator. On the national level, you could be a board of delegates member. And there's just a place for everybody within MDS, no matter your abilities. So building volunteer capacity in Region 4 and in Idaho is one of my main goals. I know there are people out there who are just like I was, just searching for an opportunity to help, to serve, to be of use, because I knew what the word of the Lord said. I would help locally at food banks or various community events. But for me, it wasn't the same fit as when I joined MDS. So I want to share my story and encourage others that they can do this too. People just need the opportunity to discover what MDS has to offer. We need to spread the word to our churches and to our communities, to our friends and to our family. And if you want to ask me questions, you are welcome to contact me. My email address is region4@mds.org. You can contact Robert or the other Idaho unit leaders. You can contact your church CCPs, or maybe some of you are CCPs and you want to get more information. Just reach out. We are ready and willing to answer any question or to help you in any way. Creating experience for those who are interested in serving is also part of my vision for Region 4, especially for young adults and youth. I came in September with the goal of having a summer youth program. I don't know where they were on the national level at that point, but I knew in my heart that's something that I wanted to see. And as you heard, that is happening now in every region. I encourage you to sign up your youth groups for late June and throughout July. The spots, they're limited and they'll fill up quickly. So you want to get your names in. The California unit is offered to pay the registration fee of every youth that's interested in going. So there's an added bonus. In addition to the summer youth program, I have a vision to start a mentoring program. And I don't know entirely how this looks yet. I'm still dreaming and have to figure out how you put the practical pieces together. My early thoughts were an M&M program, but I don't want it to melt in your mouth or in your hands. I wanted to leave a lasting taste and a hunger for service through faith and through discipleship. I want to see young people discipled in faith and in skills that prepares them for an experience on an MDS project for a week or a month or maybe even a year. Did you know there's a year-long program within MDS to serve? It's a pretty incredible experience. I want to identify and empower leaders at any age. So those are just a few of my goals, and everything starts with the volunteers. As MDS increases the capacity of volunteers, the more work that we can do. We're able to affect multitudes that experience disaster. Steve's going to speak more about the disasters within our region, but if you watch the news at all last summer and fall, you'll know that we had a record-breaking fire season in the West. Robert said he's looking for ways to increase unit projects. And Becky and Jerry touched on that a little bit, what some volunteers conceived of, ideas they conceived of to help during COVID. With the mission of MDS in serving those who and giving hope to those who are experiencing disaster, that sometimes those disasters aren't the large things that we hear about on the national scale. An example of ways to serve that are outside of the box is the project that your Idaho unit did was that late last fall for the Corpus Christi house. I was so impressed with that project and just proud to be a part of Idaho. That is one creative way that you can help serve, whether it's helping homeowners in the church, the elderly in the church that are needing assistance with retrofitting their houses for handicap access, or there's doing things in the community. There are so many opportunities if we will broaden our scope and look around. There are people who have things that are burning on their hearts that they want to make a difference, and they're just waiting for somebody to ask. Ask people in your church, what are the things that matter to you? How would you like to make a difference in the things that we see going on in our community? And I bet you'll begin to hear ideas and conform responses through MDS, engaging volunteers that will do the very mission we're each called to. So now I would like to turn this over to Steve Wiest, our region's operation coordinator, and he's going to share with you about the projects in Region 4. So thank you for having me today, and thank you for allowing me to share my story with you.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Technically, Michelle is my boss, but I see her more as my partner. We work really well together. I'm thankful that she is on the job and committed and learning a lot. In a way, she's a lot like Roger Sharp was. She brings that pastoral, caring attitude and always a spiritual outlook. And sometimes a guy like me that usually goes to fix things with a hammer and a pliers, she provides a good balance and another perspective. A couple big picture items in Region 4. We, in the past years, have paid thousands of dollars to store our equipment in the off season and said, we need a piece of property where we can park our trucks and trailers. Oh, and then we need a shop that we can work on our tools. So this whole thing is developed into what we're now calling the Western Warehouse. Would be property. We have looked at some properties, but until we have money to put it down, it's not worth trying to lock in a location. So the location is still very vague, but probably Fresno is one of the areas on the West Coast where we have the highest concentration of our Anabaptist population. Probably looking at between $500,000 and $750,000 to buy property and build a building. And on our wish list is a building that's big enough to drive a semi in and park all of our vehicles inside. A shop area, a restroom, possibly even an apartment for certainly some showers, maybe RV hookups where people could come with their RV and park for a week and work on tools, work on trucks. And talking to Kevin King, he's all excited. He's got donors lined up in his mind anyhow. And the purchasing the land would be the first part. And so we're anticipating that it'll go into the binational budget next year as an expenditure, capital expenditure. So it's going to be a couple years before that comes to fruition. Another big picture item, if you have ever tried to email anybody in MDS, you know, your email goes mds.mennonite.org. A chance to buy, and we've purchased the MDS.org. Yeah, it was MDS.mennonite.net, and this is MDS.org. Very simple. So that now if you can email me or Michelle instead of the MDS.mennonite.net, you can just do the MDS.org and it'll go. We're not fully converted over yet. It's going to take some time. We have the webmasters working on that. What's going on around the region, Saipan and Ukiah, Project Northern California, last year in March, were winding down right at the time when COVID hit. The timing was good. A couple of weeks ago, crew from Paradise drove back to Ukiah and did a few more repairs to button up projects from Ukiah, but that was a good good timing there. I'm going to share my screen and give you. Can you see that picture from Alaska? I wish Zoom would let you see what everybody else is seeing, but this is the way it is. We built 6 houses in Alaska, worked from July. We went in there as very soon after the governor opened up for travel. And with a firm deadline of September 15th, because it started to get cold and the winter is pretty intense in Willow, which is a couple hours drive north of Anchorage. Houses were basically a shell, enough that people could live inside. Actually, some of them got cabinets and drywall and some utilities hooked up, but no exterior paint. Another, come on. This is Ned's house. He's kind of like the mayor of the community. And one of the first houses. So the Alaska unit is interested in going and painting at least one of these houses this summer. There's actually not a unit in Alaska, but there's people there, the local Mennonites, that have gotten interested, and I anticipate that we are going to start an Alaska unit sometime soon. This is Paradise. We opened up in March and ran for 4 weeks. Had a great group of volunteers. The whole month of March was just a fabulous experience for everybody that was there. This group from Calaveras County, where we had a project 6 years ago, and they got introduced to MDS, and they send a group at least once a year, sometimes 3 times a year. Just to go on with California, we're having a difficulty getting building permits. And why is that? Partly because there's a building boom going on and the town is overwhelmed. The county is overwhelmed with the volume, with interest rates being low. That, coupled with the high number of homes destroyed, 92% of the town of Paradise was destroyed. Town of 28,000 people and 13,000 homes destroyed in the city and the county. And so it's just a slow process to work through. The other is that they've done sloppy government for decades and did not do the zoning and the city planning that was required of government. And now when a fire races through and exposes all the deficiencies, now they're trying to catch up. For example, they allowed people to subdivide lots and then subdivide them again. And so you've got lots that are so small. And it's this one particular, it's going to be hard for us to figure out how to get enough space to put a small house and a septic and a place to park the car. Another problem was the property lines were really uncertain. And this property has been surveyed twice, and we're still not sure. And it turns out that the septic tank was actually on the city property in the back. So we have to build a whole new septic system. And there's no city sewer in the entire town. This is in the county in Concow, probably one of our first houses to build, and the county's records show that the septic leach line went underneath the house. So we had to go and dig up the leach line to prove that it was 60 feet away from the house. Another one in Concow, that we're hoping to build, and there is a lot of confusion over the deed of the property. They have two different parcel numbers, and we've been held up for months just on that issue. Another location in the county, this guy owns a bulldozer and he knows how to use it. So he's created his own lot. But now we need to do soil testing, and he's so far from the road, and the road from the county road, and it's really steep driveway, and it might cost more to build the driveway than to build the house. So I said, let's find an alternative location. So that's taking months for the engineers to work out the foundation. Not having permits, we looked for other work to do, and the Methodist Church, where we had originally planned to house our volunteers, but the town wouldn't allow us because there's no fire sprinklers. And because the property was not zoned for sleeping. And I said, what do you mean? People sleep in churches all around the country every Sunday. How could that be against the law? Didn't even get a smile out of him. So had a group of Amish girls that came and hung the ceiling, and the next week we had a dedication. And interestingly enough, we were looking at a tiny house in a warehouse, and there was another charity that had a stack of drywall in the corner. And I said, what's with the drywall? And they go, oh, nobody wants it because it's 12-foot long sheets. And I said, can we have it? Sure. Well, it turned out to be almost exactly the right number of sheets of drywall needed to do this ceiling. So we were able to replace the ceiling and tell the church members no cost. It was all covered. That brought them to tears. And the guy on the left is one of the church members, and in Raleigh, our project director, and in Patty, the church secretary. And then when we finished the dedication, then Gary is the trustee at the church. He said, well, I got to go to work and clean up the field in the back. We've got all these trees. And I said, do you need help with that? And his eyes brightened up. He was going to be doing that himself. And there's like 2 or 3 acres of trees that needed to be cleared. And the group from Calaveras, they're mountain people. They live at 5,000 feet. They all cut trees. They all have chainsaws. They know what they're doing. And that group was overjoyed to be able to build, to be able to cut trees and burn the slash. The tiny house, I found that in a warehouse. It was sitting and had been partly started by 2 other charities that got in a dispute. And so we had the crew that was able to finish it and move it onto a property. And there's a single man that is going to get this. We had a dedication last week, and it needs a few things yet. We need to finish baseboard. This is what it looked like in the warehouse. It looked pretty rugged, and the siding was done improperly. So we tore off the siding and redid the roof. Fixed a lot of structural defects inside. Had a dedication. This guy was just so overjoyed with the front porch. He thought that was the coolest thing. We did it simply because we needed to protect the French doors from the rain. Our accommodations in Paradise is at apartments. We've rented 6 apartments, 2 bedroom, 2 bath. So there's a bathroom within a few steps of every bunk. This is MDS living at its most luxurious. Except for our eating, it's crowded. So we're working to try to find a tent that we can put in the driveway that could seat a large group. One of the possible locations that we might build is along the Butte Canyon Creek, and permits are slow in coming on this one, but a very beautiful location. Other work around the region, also in California, we have 8 different fires that we're working. We have MDS people that are monitoring or that we could work up and down California. In Washington State, there is the Okanagan, and in central Washington, they lost 73 homes. 33 rebuilds have identified, three are on tribal land. In Malden, Washington, there's also, and Pine City, 84 houses lost. Case management is working and could be producing cases fairly soon. Also, Blue Mountain flooding in southern Washington, northern Oregon, right on the Columbia River on the border. John Coben of the Oregon unit has been monitoring that. That was a fire about a year ago. And check my timer, see what my time limit is here. Also in Oregon, there are 10 different counties that have been declared a disaster area, and 9 have long-term recovery groups forming. It's very possible we could have 3 different locations in Oregon next year to do rebuilds, in addition to the 2 in Washington. Arizona has been very quiet. They're within driving distance of Paradise, and they do a good job of sending volunteers from Arizona to other projects. So I have a question for you. How many projects could we reasonably do, major traditional projects, in Region 4? Traditionally, we've only had 1. Sometimes we've had 2. In 2015, we had Calaveras and Lake County going at the same time. We built 5 houses in each of those 2 counties. Can we do more than that? Right now, Canada's border is closed. In Canada, they have no pharmaceutical companies, so they're having to rely on imported vaccinations. Don't expect to get them before the fall. So we're not expecting Canadians anytime soon, but they are very willing and ready. A lot of good Canadians, volunteers with experience in British Columbia, and which is easy driving distance to Oregon and Washington. But what do you think? How many projects could we see going in Region 4? Any ideas?
I guess my first reaction, Steve, would be somehow Idaho has to become a little more energized and send more volunteers before we can consider doing more than 1 or 2 projects a year, I think. And so that's a challenge I think, for Idaho to need to step up and try and help the region out a little bit.
In California, when we went 7 years without having a disaster that we could respond to, I was on the California unit board, and we said, what are we doing? Are we just having meetings to have meetings? And we should just close up and stop wasting our time. And so we decided that no, there were several things we could do. One is keep our organization limbered up, lubricated, and ready to go when we do have a local disaster. And then number 2 was to send volunteers to other projects, which would help energize our organization and keep our organization lubricated. And we were able to get people to go to projects and draw new volunteers into our network. They're not necessarily from Mennonite churches. We've been able to draw from a lot of other churches and have developed some good leadership from that, including Michelle White Eagle, who is, how would I say, she's becoming Mennonite, grafted in.
Well, Steve, we thank you for your report. And I think you've given us a real challenge. And it's obvious that there are, with last year's fires and everything, there's going to be challenges for us in the near future and going on. I think we have one little last report, Ernie, if you would like to do a presentation on our little project from Corpus Christi, why don't you proceed?
Okay, I'll get unmuted here and see if I can share this. Let's see, let's try to open this up. Okay, everybody see that okay? Okay, so this past November, like Robert said, we've been looking for projects to kind of get energized and get involved with. So this is one that came up just right here in Boise. So definitely a good opportunity. Corpus Christi House. Let me just go to the next slide here. Basically, a hospitality house for homeless folks. Normally, they are able to serve close to 150 people a day, and with coffee and meal, showers, an email address, which is very important for folks, and then just a welcoming environment. But with the COVID impact, they really had to limit their operations just down to 10 people at a time, serving no meals, but basically still allowing, for the mail to be collected and for a few people to come in at a time. So they approached basically MDS, and we have several people were connected. Barrick is one, and a number of others who are volunteers at Corpus regularly. Rick Bowman is another one who is a part of MDS and also works for Corpus. They approached MDS, asked if we could come on board and do kind of a enhancement of the courtyard in the back of the building. We will see a few more pictures of this down the line here, but basically they're trying to allow more people to access the shelter from the back. This will save folks having to gather on the front sidewalk out in the weather and in traffic, and just a much better way to be able to come in to Corpus. So basically, we were trying to get that ready. It also would provide, once the weather gets warmer, there'd be shelter picnic area back there, and just a lot more space, a lot more outdoor space. And then finally, we ended up taking a couple of walls out, and primarily this was just to open visibility so that the Corpus staff can monitor what's happening out in the yard. Make sure there's not drug use going on or different things, and just kind of keep a better atmosphere for everybody by doing that. So the project consisted of, again, just basically about 4 days, a total of about 8 volunteers, of course, all wearing masks. See if I can move this out of the way. There we go. Okay. So one part of the project, if you look at that slide there, you can see there's a retaining wall on the left side of that. On the right, there had been a full, like a 6-7 foot tall wall, as well as the one behind had been taller as well. So the first one was to take the wall out, the wall right in this area, and then bring this wall from about that height down to about there. The other things were to move 2 storage sheds, modifying one, and then perform electrical work, adding a shed light and a light sensor under the shelter, or a shelter like this, but another one over in the corner. And then assembling additional picnic tables, power washing, and just kind of getting it ready basically for use, for entry use and for summer use. Let's see here. So starting out, this wall, I mean, it doesn't sound like much, just take this wall down. But it had a lot of, it's solidly grouted, solidly poured with concrete, rebar every 2 feet or so. And so it just took a lot of, basically a diamond blade cut through it to try to bring it down. So basically we started out doing that. Of course, involved a lot of sledgehammer and cold chisel and crowbars just to get it down. And again, you can see this wall on the right is the one that came all the way down. This one is just brought down to about that height. Once the walls were down, we came back another day and put the cap on, kind of took the cap off the top, brought it down and reinstalled it on the top of the wall there to kind of finish that. This wall had a mural on it before, so we did feel bad about taking the mural down, but was part of the price of progress, I guess, and maybe another mural, smaller one can be painted there again. Then once the wall was out on this wall that came out, we had to extend the patio area, take it a ways back to kind of flatten it out, and then re-bricked with pavers underneath where that wall had stood. The sheds, we ended up modifying the one. It's a steel shed. It was taken, disassembled, kind of shrunk down in size to fit in another spot, and then loader or something in there to try to pick it up, or a forklift, be even better. So we ended up doing 1 inch at a time using crowbars and a 2x6 down underneath, and just kind of jacked it over by hand. So it's kind of a challenge, but kind of fun to see we actually got it where we wanted to move it. Had to move about, 8 feet or 8 or 10 feet, and then turn it sideways. So it took a little bit, an inch at a time to do that. So here's the finished project. Again, this wall, had been like that. That's gone. This wall is cut down to size. Patio's replaced. Again, light wiring and some done in that shed, and then another shed off to the left over here, just to get that the basic area and the construction area, the construction completed. Electrical work, installed another light sensor light under the shelter, as well as the storage shed I had showed you before. Then this kind of happened after the fact, but still some of the same volunteers. Corpus ended up buying these new tables, and we just had kind of like an erector set project party, putting these things together, and then getting them assembled and kind of spaced out, just getting the area ready, again for use by the clients. And then, of course, power washing and just trying to clean the whole area, get rid of all that dust that came about from all that saw cutting, and just kind of get it ready to go. So this is a group of volunteers that had worked a couple months earlier, doing light bulb changing, general cleanup inside Corpus, kind of getting it ready again, or just continuing maintenance during the COVID period. And a number of these folks were involved on the MDS project, and some additional ones weren't, but it was good to get a photo of a lot of the folks that were involved in this. And mostly from our church, but not everyone here. And finally, we had a good time together, and no masks were harmed during this production. So that's basically it. Any questions on that, or any clarification? Michelle?
Ernie, I just wanted to make a comment. I was thinking about some thoughts that I didn't share with you earlier, but you said that this project at Corpus Christi House happened because Eric was already a part of in this facility, and he saw the need and brought it to MDS. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
So when you as a unit are thinking about ways of finding new projects, I realized I should have given you a little list that you can consider. Just like Barrick already being involved in this facility, there are people everywhere who are serving in various means. That can be that connection point to conceive new project ideas, along with being involved in city government and mayors. Who are the people that you are connected to that are connected to those groups, or to the ministerial associations, or state VOAD, or the emergency management at the state or at the county levels? Those kinds of connections can produce opportunities for MDS. So I just wanted to encourage you with that. Again, I'm so impressed with this project, able to complete there at Corpus Christi. So thank you for giving such a wonderful report.
You bet. Thank you. Yeah, that's definitely a good, so good suggestions. There are other groups to connect through, and we'll try to be open to that. Definitely. Yeah, I appreciate that. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, I guess I'll go ahead and close this down, and we'll go to the next step there.
Well, thank you, Ernie. Appreciate that report. It's time to get on with some unit business. I was just looking at my watch and we are maybe running a little bit long, so I will try and speed things up a little bit. Matt, do you have a report for the, since you're, well, let me back up. Our unit officers right now are myself as chair, Ernie is vice chair, and Matt Isaac is playing the role of both secretary and treasurer. And that consists of entirety of our executive board and the unit officers. And Matt, do you have minutes and treasurer's report that you can share with us?
I'll bring that. Let me bring his your treasury report up here. Let's see. There we go. Okay.
All right. So as you can see, not a whole lot going on in our account, but our balance today last year was 73.62.64. We did buy a few tools for our trailer and had a couple project expenses, and we're part of the Idaho ad, which is the Idaho Volunteer Organizations Active in Disaster. So there's a $50 membership due every year. So as of right now, we do have quite a bit of funds available. I always tell people in our church, if they ever want to make a donation to Idaho MDS, just the way that our account is set up, you would send your donation to the binational office and then designate it for the Idaho unit, and they would turn around and put the donation in our account. So if there's no questions on the treasurer's report, I can just go over a few things from our executive committee meeting. Okay.
Okay.
So let me get it pulled up here. So our last committee actions at our last executive meeting, we did decide to have a rotational basis for elections on positions. So each position would be a term of 3 years, and that way we would rotate re-election every year, so we're not having a giant change that all of a sudden 1 year the entire board is up for re-election. So technically last year was when the treasurer would have been up for re-election. So as of right now, we're into the second year for that, or first full year. Yeah.
Into the first full year.
Yeah. So, and then in, I believe then the next position up for re-election would be chair, and then it'll just trickle down from the top, from chair, vice chair, and then secretary, treasurer. So every year we'll have a re-election. And we also decided that the MDS tool trailer, which is currently at the church in Caldwell right now, that the binational office is handling the registration and insurance on the trailer, which is something that's common practice for other units as well. So we still house, obviously, we still house the trailer here in our area. But as far as keeping the registration current and the liability insurance on the trailer, that's all taken care of, which is kind of nice because then we just are in charge of maintaining the trailer.
Yeah, I might say, Matt, that came about because we noticed that the registration on the trailer had expired several years prior to our action as a board doing that. And,
Yeah, we were a few years
also
past.
as a unit, we were not carrying any insurance. So it's much better if we can have the financial handle that for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think even when the trailer was in Cami, I don't think it was current, but that's
Well, I
okay.
think they had renewed it just for the CAMI project, and then that's where it sat, never got renewed. So,
And then a couple other things, and this is also regarding the trailer, is that we did go ahead and get MDS locks and keys. So there's universal locks. So kind of the reasoning behind this is if we ever had to loan out the trailer to another unit, they could just take it and go. They would already have the keys with them. We wouldn't have to try to coordinate dropping off and returning of keys. So which that was just done a couple weeks ago. And we're in the process of trying to revamp and redesign the tool trailer. I know Robert and Ernie have been working on that. So we're gonna try to bring all of our tools up to the current lithium ion phase and no more NiCad batteries, and just try to make it more functional overall. It's a little outdated and just the way everything is kind of set up. So try to make it a little more easier to get in and out of and store things the best we can with the size that it is.
yeah, I think that on the tool trailer, it really is just needs to have tools added and be updated to be a good tool trailer that is really sufficient to construct a house or do repairs on places. Tool trailer, I think, is originally outfitted, really was partially repair and new build and partially first response trailer, trying to do both things. And quite honestly, it's just not big enough to house tools for do all of that. So, and with the fires last summer in California and Oregon and Washington, I think that there will be a chance that other units will want to borrow our trailer, and it should be outfitted right with the proper tools in order to proceed. Right now, we don't even have an extension ladder so that we could do roofing work or anything like that in the tool trailer. So we just need to update our tools and add tools to it to make it efficient and useful for other units. Matt, we thank you for that report. And is there any question from anybody about what the executive committee has done in the 2 years since our last unit meeting? As Matt said, we put together or modified the Constitution in order to take into effect that we would go into a rotation, or we amended the Constitution, but the order of rotation was never specified. So as executive committee, we made that change to in rotation, as Matt said. And we also stepped up and decided to make the decision to, after talking with the Lidditz, to transfer the registration and insurance to Lidditz. One thing Binational has assured us is that the tool trailer still belongs to Idaho, and it's Idaho's to tool trailer. If we would ever want to dispose of it, it's our, we're free to dispose of it, and we're free to use it in any way that we feel is appropriate. They just keep some of the paperwork up to date for us. That does mean it has a Pennsylvania tag on it, but that's all right. And so unless there is some objections to any of that, we will continue to proceed that way. And not hearing any comment or objections, why don't we move into nomination for chair, and I will move out of the way and let Ernie take over.
Okay, yes. So like we talked about, Matt was elected a year ago, and he's already a year into his term. And now the next term that comes up is the chairperson, and that will be, from now until 2024, I guess, would be the 3 years there. So I'm not quite sure how to approach this. I have heard rumors that the current chairperson is making himself available if we would like to keep him in that position. But I'm also open to nominations. I don't want to, exclude anyone. So I don't know. Do we have any nominations from the floor?
I'd like to nominate Robert for re-election.
Is there a second to that?
Yes, I would second, certainly.
Thank you. Again, I don't want to close anyone off. If anyone wants to suggest, not that I don't agree with that nomination, but again, any other comments or nominations? Yes, hearing none, we will go ahead and vote then. So all in favor, and this is open to anyone who feels that, definitely a part of the unit and want to be a part of the vote. All in favor of electing Robert to another 4-year term as the chairperson of Idaho unit. Excuse me.
3-year term.
Three-year term, thank you. Raise your hand if you're in favor of that. Okay, I see all positive votes. So that is carried, and Robert will be our new chairperson for the next 3 years. So, and thank you, Robert, for your service, and look forward to some more good years. So thank you for all you've been doing.
Well, thank you for the vote of confidence. Basically, pretty much concludes the meeting, except that I would like to entertain some discussion or questions or answers as to, or at least have people think as where does the Idaho unit go from here? And how do what are the procedures or what can we do to make the unit more active? And so I would entertain either discussion now or at the very least, keep that in the back of your minds and approach us, any of the executive committee at any time, and over the next year or 2 years, we really would like to be a more active unit and keep us going. So I'd hate to see the Idaho unit event fade from history. So let's keep going that way. Are there any questions or discussion? Any points anybody wants to bring up?
I'd just like to say one thing. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So I think, just because of availability and stuff and how that went at Corpus Christi, I think one thing we can be doing here is just to continue to look for opportunities and, be creative. I feel like Corpus Christi, while that wasn't something that, happened to where something was destroyed, it was still a creative way for us to get involved and help people out. So I think just kind of thinking outside of the box of disasters, seeing, I mean, obviously we want to help with that as well, but I think, just kind of expanding that area. How can we help people, within our community and, limitations that we might have. So.
Well, thank you, Matt. I would echo that. I think very much that with the COVID across the country and in Canada both, MDS units have been thinking outside the box and looking at other ways to serve, and we need to do that, more of that in Idaho. And as a unit, where MDS is set up so that we are free to make decisions as to where and how we want to serve. So outside the box is definitely in order, as long as it's serving the purpose of bringing the love of Jesus to our clients. That's what we want to do.
I thought it was interesting, again, the report from Becky and Jerry to some of the other possibilities kind of came to, or made me start thinking a little bit more, like maybe even the possibility of building a tiny house. That's an exciting thing, like what they're doing in Colorado, I think it was, they mentioned, and that might be something that on a scale, that we could do. Maybe kind of hard to do, the house building project where you build a house off site and then ship it. But I know my home congregation back in Kansas did that. And I forgot how far they sent that, but it really was a good way to bring in youth and everyone in the church that wanted to be a part of that. So maybe a tiny house might be a little more of a scale we could look at. I don't know. Anyway, that's kind of got me thinking a bit.
And as you mentioned that, Ernie, that's something that, well, Steve and I have talked about that quite a bit, but I've been thinking about that too, also in terms of, as I said, that mentoring program. What if people were coming together, or in that case, young adults and youth, and building a tiny home? And this is where my comment might apply to the Idaho unit is, and that home is donated to a cause. I don't know what the homeless population is like in the metro areas there. Do they have tiny homes, or to one of the hospitals for housing, families of the hospital clients, or even, the veterans, or even to churches for missionary use, or emergency use for single mothers, or, when you start thinking along those lines, there's so many ideas that start springing up of ways that MDS could take initiative to help someone else and engage volunteers in that process, and even have a celebration afterwards to whomever that goes to, where you have the chance to get acquainted with those that are being helped. So that's one idea. And as you spoke, I thought about where the low income, the elderly, the veterans, the disabled homeowners. You drive by their house and you see, boy, they have fallen into great disrepair and need some help. So there's another opportunity for crews to just go in and to be a blessing to help those homeowners. And again, that can come through partnering with community groups and the city mayors and various things like that. Those are just a couple of the ideas that came to my head as we've been talking.
Yeah, my experience with the tiny house here has been interesting. I think it is something that could be done. Built on I mean, there's tiny house has all kinds of different dimensions to it in terms of what type you build, but to do something on trailer like we did here, this was a 36-foot gooseneck. And that could be built anywhere in the US or Canada and site. And there's 4 different ways you build a tiny house. One is traditional, where it's inspected by the local building inspector. It's on a solid foundation and pay all the fees accordingly. Number 2 is you build under the RV rules, the rules that govern the RV association. They have their own rules and their special testing and inspections. Or number 3 is, 2 is the mobile home. So the Mobile Home Association has their whole set of rules and inspections. And number 4 is what I call bootleg, don't ask. In Concal, Butte County, it reminds me a lot of the Appalachians where I lived for a couple of years and built homes. And people that are living out there are resourceful and they're not going to let poverty getting in their way. They'll buy a house paycheck to paycheck. They'll buy a travel trailer that's used and falling apart. And they're not going to let any government officials stand in their way. This tiny house that we did in Concal, it was the bootleg model. And my consolation here was, yeah, it doesn't follow the rules. It isn't legal. The county inspector could go out there and red tag him and make him move it at any time, but he'd hook onto it with his truck and he'd pull it to the neighbors and it would sit there for another number of years before, or he can sell it to another state that doesn't have rules and he could probably get 50 or 75,000 for it. So I think it's got some real possibilities. But to know where it's, my comment is always, it's not about the house, it's about the land. Where are you going to park it and is it going to be sustainable? But a little bit of investigation, and I think my hunch is that the RV model is the way to go. Could be done.
Is that California, or do you think that's broader than that? Those different options, kind of.
The building codes are so extensive that every jurisdiction picks and chooses what they want to enforce. Like Texas have nothing, so you can do whatever you want. But across the country, the rules are the same. It just depends on what they enforce. And it may be
In Idaho County, there's none.
enforce a whole new set of rules that they never had before the disaster.
I think in Boise, you can go up to 200 square feet without a permit, as long as you observe setback.
Well, I know a lot of places you have for tiny houses, you got to meet the zoning requirements or homeowners association requirements, and those sometimes actually restrict you from doing a tiny house because there's minimum square footage that you need to have. You just have, you have to look into it for each case.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like some research we need to do to kind of look into this. Yeah.
Thank you all. You have something else, Steve?
In Butte County, there are quite a few people, maybe thousands, living in a travel trailer on their property. And the travel trailers are not built for year-round living. They're falling apart. You see them with tarps over the top, refrigerator sitting outside because the refrigerator didn't work. You hear about no heat. To upgrade to a tiny house is a really big step forward.
Well, like I say, thank you all for attending the meeting, and we'll plan for another one next spring. And in the meantime, uh, keep your thinking hats on and for ways that Idaho Unit can serve the community in the region better than we do right now. So, Michelle, could I convey or ask you to dismiss us with a prayer?
Sure, yes. All right, Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day, for this weekend, for this reminder of what you have done for us, who you are for us, Lord God, and that we have the freedom to gather together to worship you, Lord, to glorify and exalt your name, to celebrate you, Lord. Father, I thank you for each one of these representing the Idaho unit. I thank you for the minds that you've given them, Lord, the abilities and the skills, Father God. I thank you, Lord, that there is creativity amongst them, Lord. And we just ask, Father, for your wisdom, your Holy Spirit to just come in and to stir up, Lord, and bring to the forefront the ideas and the projects, Lord, that you have for them. God, you know our hearts to be a blessing, Lord, and to help those that are in need. And we just look to you, Lord, and ask you to lead the way in this, God, and a blessing upon each and every one, Father, as they serve so faithfully, Lord. And I pray, Father, that others would be drawn into this mission, Lord God, and that they would see the light and the joy that we experience, Lord, as we work to be the hands and feet of Jesus to those in need. Lord, that others will come in, Lord, and they will taste and see and experience the goodness, Lord, that you've poured out here. Father, I just thank you for this upcoming year of service. May we gather again together next spring with just great stories of rejoicing, Lord. Just thank you and praise you in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Take care, everyone. Glad to see you all.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to close out.